Hi everyone, and welcome to some reading sprints. I hope that all of you guys are ready to get some reading done, to be productive. And of course, I hope that your Tuesday has been going well. For me, it's Tuesday evening, but of course, it does depend on where you are. So if it's still the middle of the day, I hope that you're having a great time. Now, most of the time, we are going to read. I'm going to read at the very least during the sprints. So if you're going to do that as well, please let me know what you're going to be picking up. Is it a new book or are you going to continue a current read? Let me know. And if you're going to do something else productive during the sprints, like clean the house, which I should definitely do, but not today, then also let me know, of course. Hi, Cleo. Hans also in the chat. Hi, Hans. I just had the common sense to make some coffee, so very happy about that because I came home a little bit later today. I normally I leave work at a reasonable hour, so I'm before traffic, everything's going fine. But of course, things get in the way, and usually it happens on a Tuesday. I don't know why, but if I have reading sprints planned, something is going to get in the way. So I was a little bit later today, but luckily traffic was not too bad, and we had some French fries. Now, whenever we order something, I always get way too excited, and I am somebody who thinks that everything on the menu looks good. So I ordered way too much, and now I do have a little bit of like a postprandial dip, you could say. It's good that we have these sprints so that I can be productive because otherwise I would be a couch potato at this point. You are going to read the Kashil book, right, Cleo? I'm so happy that you are enjoying it. Hans also guessed it right. Because as you know, I have a little bit of a theory that our tastes don't always align, but it seems that for Kashil, at the very least, we are both enjoying it. So that's great. And especially if you're hosting a read along, it's always nice if you actually enjoy the books. It would make for an interesting discussion if some of us hate it, but it's nicer if everybody is having a good time, I suppose. Steve, I do hope that one of these days I will be able to catch one of your sprints. I've seen that, was it yesterday? You had a sprint, but it started at 10:30, which I'm grandma. That's a little bit too late for me, but I'm keeping my eyes open, especially for when I have the day after off. I'm going to catch one of these sprints. Hi, Kitty. Just in time. Still have to edit videos and call my grandma. Yeah. I have to call my dad because he had like this same stomach bug that I had over the weekend, but I haven't really asked him if he's better by now. I just assumed that since I'm better and it only took me 2 days to really get over it and be almost 100%, that he's the same. But maybe I shouldn't assume and just give him a call. He would like that. Hi, Danielle. Happy you can make it. Yes, well, I also still have the Christmas tree up. And I think that our plan was actually to do it last weekend, even though I knew in my heart, I knew it was not going to happen last weekend. But we want to plan so at least, hopefully, by the beginning of February, it actually happens. We need to just be ready for that mentally. So we need to have a couple of failed weekends where that's the plan, it's just not happening. And then one day, but yeah, it's still up and it's still so cozy, especially now it's so dark outside. It's just nice to have a little bit of coziness, but after a while it's no longer the time, so it needs to go down maybe next weekend. Although I'm just really not looking forward to that. I hate setting up the tree as well. I love having it, but all of the work before and after, not nice. Hi, Raf. Ooh, Hans, you picked up embroidery. Is it, wait, embroidery is the, it's with a needle. That's what I know. But other than that, I'm horrible at this. I think that I can do some crochet in a straight line. I cannot do anything else, but a very, very long line of crochet, that's what I can do. And that's where my abilities stop. Pick up Game of Thrones in a bit. Yes. I still haven't finished Game of Thrones. I'm almost through, but I am reading. I have the books here next to me. I'm reading fifth season. And since this is a book that I definitely want to read and have a little bit of a discussion about, even though, of course, during the sprints it will be completely spoiler free, I think that I'm going to read that during sprints. And then Game of Thrones, I'm almost done with it, to be honest. But it's a read that I know so well that I think I can just pick it up in snippets and just be ready by the 4th of February. But it's almost nothing that I still have to read. And I also have Dreamer's Pool here next to me by Juliette Merlier, the other book that I want to start this week. But I think that if I make good progress in the 5th season today, that will be the most important part. I've only read the prologue, the first chapter, and I'm 2 pages into the second chapter. I'm really liking it, but I think if I can make a good dent into it and have a good progress session during the sprints, that I'll just be in it, in the zone, just as Jeroen, because he's also reading it right now. And that's what you need. Getting into a series, it can be difficult, but you just need to read and keep reading. Exactly, Hans. It's nice to see new faces in the chat, but it's also nice to just see people that you recognize and some friendly faces that you know you will have a nice conversation. So, hi, everybody, both new and familiar faces. Hi, Oriana. Are you also reading something? Maggie also joining us. Hello. Raf failed again with the video, so now I'm scanning books. It's also nice to do something that you know will just succeed. I'm going to film a little bit tomorrow. I always try to batch film. I always fail, but I hope that tomorrow is a day because I do have quite a bit of videos that still need to go up that I haven't even filmed yet. So there's that. Oh my god, don't mention fries, so tempted to order. But we'll just have ovenhapjes. Should do groceries sometime. Well, I actually did groceries yesterday and well, I think that I ordered, not ordered, that I got some healthy food from the grocery shop. But since today I was home a little bit later, my husband had two options. He either had to cook or he had to go and get dinner. And well, usually when my husband needs to cook, we eat fries or we eat something else from takeaway, which I'm not complaining, to be honest. Takeaway is fine. But it is very difficult if you want to do something productive afterwards. And to be honest, Theo, ovenhapjes are also top notch. 680 pages into Kushiel's Dart. Are you still really enjoying it? I know that I was reading it last year together with Amy, and there is like a switch 1/3 into the book, and she did not like it because she liked the first 1/3, and she still really enjoyed the book, but that was something that she disliked, while I loved that shift. But I'm also somebody who cannot see things coming, even if they hit me in the face like 10 times over. So I like it when I get surprised by books, but from other people I heard that they were expecting some things. So I don't know, but I really enjoyed that. And Kushiel's Dart is also the type of book, for me at least, that it feels like I'm reading it pretty fast, but because it's so humongous, it still takes a little bit of time. Chadia still needing to drive home. I hope that we will be entertaining Chadia and that traffic is not too bad. Time zones really are, they're not nice. But at the same time, it is amazing that we can have this all with different people all over the world. Yes, we have the time zones, but at least we can have a conversation. And it still amazes me. I'm not too great when I'm like looking at times and how long certain things has been. But I think that even 20 years ago, this was something that would not happen. Maybe in like a more professional setting, but just for fun, being online and talking to people from all over the world, I think that that's something that's so new and that's really a great development. Same months. And that's also something that I'm loving lately. I've been seeing much more reading sprints from, well, people that I like to watch. So of course that's also nice if you know that a fellow booktuber that you enjoy watching videos of, they are doing reading sprints, but also reading sprints in the evenings for us Europeans. So that's nice. Yes, with a needle and colored thread. Doing cross stitch, which is the basic stitch probably anyone can learn. Just following a chart and doing ASMR. That does sound nice. Sometimes I also think that that's, well, no, I wanted to say I think that that's perfect while you're listening to an audiobook. But at the same time, I thought that about puzzling and I couldn't do it. It was either looking for the next puzzle piece that fit or paying attention to the audiobook. So maybe I'm taking embroidery a little bit too lightly. And especially in the beginning when you're learning the stitches, I do imagine that you need to think about it. At the same time, the first time that I tried to puzzle at the same time as listening to an audiobook, it was Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie, which I didn't like. So maybe if it was a book that I did enjoy, it would have gone better. Let's see if I can keep myself from rewatching the new Miley Cyrus song for the 10,000th time tonight. Is that the one Flowers? I I don't listen to the radio, so usually I have no idea what's going on, but it was recommended to me on YouTube and I listened to it and I really like it. Miley Cyrus in general is just a singer that I really enjoy. I think that she has a magnificent voice, and especially the last couple of years, she has been using it in music genres that I enjoy. But I really like that new song. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Paramita. Reading into The Narrow Dark, book three of the Last King of Austen art series by Ted Williams. Also working on a fellowship proposal. Ooh, deadline tomorrow. Good luck, Paramita. Those are extremely stressful, so I've heard. So fingers crossed that first of all, it's not too stressful to work towards that deadline, but also that you hear something soon, because sometimes it can take a long time before you actually hear if it gets accepted or not, and that's also stressful. In the Ted Williams series, I will first read Memories Are Untorn, and then if I like it, I will jump into that series as well. I've heard great things, but I have no idea how I'm going to feel about it. Trying to finish in 5 years. Not what I normally read, but it was the pick for one of the book club I'm in. Oh, okay. I don't think that I've ever heard of that book. So I do hope that you're enjoying it. And sometimes it's also great to pick up a book that you don't normally read and then you get surprised by it. I think that sometimes that's also why book clubs are such a good idea, or read alongs or stuff like that. I primarily read fantasy, but whenever I pick up something that's outside of my comfort zone, like I picked up I'm Glad My Mom Died last year, sometimes it's just exactly the thing that you need, and it can really surprise you. Hi, Melanie. Ooh, you finally finished the Amber Blade. And did you like it? I hope so. But now you're not sure what to read next. Sometimes you can really have like almost a post book hangover because you enjoyed the book so much, and now it's everything that you try is just not exactly what you're looking for, right? I completely know how that feels, but I still haven't found the cure yet. So I do hope that you can find something to read by the next sprints. Well, the first sprints of today. I've been trying real hard to get back into the process of that large video, but it's a huge struggle. Yeah. Sometimes it's also just not the time, right? And it's also fine to then just decide, let it simmer for a while and then you can get back to it. Also, I just realized that normally I don't really drink anything. So is my slurping annoying? Because then I will stop and just drink during the sprints. Because I can hear it, especially with the headphones. I hear what's going on in my head, and I can hear myself slurping. So please let me know if that's annoying. I loved it more after the switch. I was absolutely not expecting it, and I really enjoy that I can predict it. Yes, exactly. Scanning a book from university so I can have my screen reader read it. Oh, okay. I think sometimes for me at the very least, it's it's an entire process that goes through it, and I think especially with audiobooks, those are available, but with the university, it's you have a screen reader who reads it, so you don't have like nonfiction or academic works that are available through audiobooks. I never really thought about it, but that's a lot of extra work that you have to put in. I've been wanting to fly through it for the past few days. However, my pace isn't fast enough, and so now I get tired of my own slow pace. Well, it's such a big book, and I had the mass market paperbacks, and I think that the first one is I want to say 850 pages, but even though that sounds like it's a big book, it's deceiving because it's bigger than that. So I had the same. It was a very slow pace, or so it felt for me, but I was still reading pretty fast. It's the book. Because even the writing style, I find that it's very accessible, but there are just a lot of words in it. I would definitely join reading sprints, Kitty. I love reading sprints. especially because and I know that a lot of people experience this, but even though I love reading, somehow when I get home, it's so much easier to just lay down on the couch, get your cell phone, and just scroll. And at the end of the evening, you think, I've been an idiot. I could have done something that I actually enjoyed and had a great book, and now I don't even know what I did. And it was more feeling bored and not really just getting up, picking up a book, and reading. And reading sprints helped with that so much. The very first time I went live, I expected the same thing. Yeah, exactly, Theo. It's always a little bit nerve wracking when you push the go live button because it takes a while for the chat, for at least for me, because maybe I have just crappy internet, but for the chat to get there. So it's in the beginning, it seems like nobody is watching. And that stressed me out the first couple of times. And sometimes it can still be like, is somebody watching? Like looking here and there. But after a while, you do get used to it. Also, I'm sorry, but I have my insulin pump here and it's making a lot of noises. So I'm just going to have a quick look. Yes, well, when you eat French fries and you need to watch your sugar intake, it's not the best thing in the world. So going to quickly get this right. Okay. Yes, agree, Paramita. And I think that it's also, we need more European centered people who also do reading sprints for fellow people who cannot join the ones in the US or somewhere else in the world. So definitely do so, Kitty. Ha, that flower song was even recommended to me. Wonder how much the label is paying for that. I think that's seriously trending. And I never watch music videos on YouTube, so I was very surprised that it was recommended. I do think that I'm subscribed to Miley though. To be honest, if you do film a reaction video for that song, it could just take off. Because somehow people always want to see what others think of a song that they like or hate or TV show. So those reaction videos, I'm always surprised, but they do quite well. Okay, so Ariana does enjoy embroidery with an audiobook. Maybe I should give it a try someday. I don't know why, but usually a lot of people are good at multitasking with the audiobook and then something else at hand, but I have a hard time unless I need to drive. Then it's fine, but I still had to train myself for that. One of my two referees hasn't responded. Yeah, it's the same old, right, Paramita? But I do hope that they respond soon. Must try audiobooks sometimes together with embroidery. My mom tried to teach me all of the, what is it, needle crafting? Like she also tried to teach me, is that knitting? I'm doing something really strange here, probably, but with the big needles. I think it's knitting. She tried to teach me. She stopped after a while. I'm really not that crafty. Hi, Anita. I've also knit. Yes, knitting. Okay, that was the right word. While listening to audiobooks. Yes, well, it might not have been the best description. I can hear what's going on in my head, but these are noise canceling headphones, and it takes some getting used to. Some things are available in audio, some are available as ebooks, but some are only available as print books. So I'm scanning roughly 800 pages for 2 books now. It's, yeah, like I said, it's something that you don't even think about, but if you are in need of it, it's a hassle. And I would hope that things change over the next couple of years. 901 in my edition, 220 to go. Okay, so by the end of the week, my sprint, your sprints, Cleo, is going to happen. I did like the Amber Blade, but it was long for me. I know some people can easily read 800 pages in a couple days, but I'm a slow reader and it's hard for me to keep my interest. I completely understand what you're saying, Melanie. I have 800 pages for me, especially a physical edition. It takes a while, and I really need to love the book for me to enjoy it. And sometimes even if I enjoy the book, and I can be like, this was a great book, but for my personal enjoyment, it just took too long to actually finish it and to go to another read. So I completely understand what you mean. Hi, Esme. Also, if you're a bit afraid to go live, you can always ask some to chat too. Maybe it's needing to chat too that would help the first time. Yes, I agree. I think that I actually don't know what the first time was that I went live, but especially reading sprints, it took until these ones, well, the ones that I started, I think the beginning of December, to actually do them alone. And it's so much, well, easier after a while. You understand that it's just talking and responding to the chat and having a good time. But it does take a lot of the stress away if you know that you have two or three other people who are just going to have a chat with you. And you can look at the chat and just interact with all the people combined, but it's not just you keeping it together, because that's very much how I felt the first time. Like that's what I needed to do. And being together with other people takes a little bit of that stress away. Or knowing that people are going to be in the chat. Like for today, I knew that a couple of you were going to be here, and that at the very least, I wasn't going to be talking to myself the entire time. And that's also something. If you know that you're going to go live for the first time, just let people know on Discord, for example. And if people can let you know in advance, I'm going to be there, that's nice. To be honest, I also don't know what to say in those reaction videos, Raf, because I would be like, I liked it or I didn't like it. And sometimes I have watched those, so I don't really know what the big deal is, but I find it a little bit disingenuous sometimes because it's so over the top, and it's like seeing this for the first time, and it's one of the most well-known songs ever. Uh, it's not my type of YouTube, but at the same time, so many people love it, so there must be something appealing that I just don't see. I love audiobooks for going on dog walks. This is something that I have taught myself over the last couple of weeks because I'm somebody who gets very easily. Sorry, I'm looking at the light now, and it looks like it can fall any minute. It's it's crooked, so I'm going to message my husband in a minute that he needs to look at that light. But with audiobooks on dog walks, yes, I get very easily scared. So it took me a very long time to be able to go on dog walks with my dogs because they're small. I actually wanted to have a German Shepherd just so I would feel safe on walks, but I got over that and then I started walking with the dogs alone. But it took me so long before I was not afraid to have earphones in because I want to listen and see the surrounding and be certain that everything is okay and that nobody's following me. So it took me a very long time to finally just get over that and decide you're being silly here, just have a good time. And now it's okay, at least when it's light. If I need to start doing a walk when the light is out, well, when it's dark outside, I still don't go on walks when it's dark outside, with or without an audiobook. But you are absolutely right, Esme. It's so peaceful when you have like a nice scenery, you're walking in nature, and you have an audiobook to go alongside it. Strangely addicted to reaction videos. But I'm also the type of person who watches other people's reaction when they're watching a movie for the first time that I've already watched. Well, yes, this I oh my thanks, Lode. This I do a lot of the time, but only with people that I know. Like if I'm watching a movie and it's one of my favorite movies and there's a friend sitting next to me or my husband, I want them to like it. So I will start asking questions or like look at their reaction and almost have a sense of pride when they like it as well, even though that's completely misplaced. I didn't do anything for the movie to be good, but that's when I do like it. Hi, Anka. So happy to find out there are sprints on YouTube tonight. I hope I can listen to a good chunk of House of Earth and Blood. It's a reread for me, so I can finally start book 2. I actually have book 1 on my shelves, but I still need to finish the ACOTAR series. I have read the first 2 books, and I still need to read the third one. I lent it to a friend of mine a couple of months, well, I think it's a year ago at this point, and she gave it back a couple of months ago. But at that point, I was out of the series, so it's not really high priority for me. But at the very least, I want to finish that one, and then I do still have House of Earth and Blood on my TBR together with the other one. You have the three books in the Akatar series, but then you have another one, and I actually don't know what that is called, but it is also by Sarah J. Maas, and it is also adult, and I think that it's connected to the Akatar series, but I don't know which one. What is a good audiobook service? I didn't like audiobooks when I tried before. Can't focus as well, so it's mostly podcasts for me. But maybe a non-fiction would help. Hmm. Well, I use Storytel, and it is free for the first month, I think. When I used it, at the very least, you can use the first month for free, and it has a lot of Dutch books, but it also has some English books. And I like it because it's just a subscription service. So I think it's 12 euros a month, and you can listen to whatever book you need. There's not a waiting time, but you don't own the books. So if you want to listen to 10 books in a month, that's fine. But if you stop the subscription, you don't really have the files. So you just borrow them. But for me, that was fine. I do know that Libby also has some audiobooks, and I use it for the audiobooks that are not available to me on my subscription service. For example, it has the my subscription, so Storytel has the First Law series, and it has the trilogy of standalones, but it doesn't have the new trilogy. So because I'm listening to the Age of Madness trilogy, I use Libby for that. But that's a little bit more hassle, especially because you do have a waiting time, and you only have the audiobook for, I want to say, 2 weeks, which usually is fine. But sometimes it's like just not enough time, and then you've lost the book for multiple weeks. I had that with the first book in the Age of Madness trilogy, I think, or the second one. I I was at the last hour, and then I had to return it, and it took another month before I got it back. So luckily there was another solution at that point, but yeah, that's annoying. But Libby is free, so that's a big advantage here. And I think that Audible is of course the other big one, but I don't know how Audible works. But I do know that you own the books afterwards, so you really get the files. But I think that that also means that you only have 1 credit per month. And I don't really care if I own the audiobook files because I barely reread, so that's not really an issue for me. But yeah, it depends what you want. And then Script is one that I don't even, I've heard of it, but I haven't really looked it up. But I more than get my money out of it with how much I listen. Yeah, that's a very important factor. Yes, so Audible, Script, and Storytel. I actually didn't know that Script was available to us. Now I need to look that up. Maybe that's a better option for me than Storytel. Hi, Arun. Yes, exactly, Raf. If you ask some friends in advance, it takes a lot of the pressure off. Okay, I thought that you were coming home from work, Shadia, and that you had a long day, but stopping at Wernegem Shopping Center after work, that sounds a lot better. And buying a new book also sounds pretty great. Which one did you buy? I have been so good for the last month because, as you guys know, I am on a book buying ban. And on Amazon, the UK version, there were great deals. Hellbent by, damn it, it's Hellbent by, well, we all know, right? It's the sequel to Ninth House. That one was 10 euros for the hardcover, which was a great deal. Also, the sequel to the Monk and Robot series, it's a small novella series, was only 10 euros, while it is a novella. And the sequel is more than, I think it's 25 euros, which is way too much. And then it was 10 on Amazon UK. But I was very strong and I did not buy it. So I'm a little bit proud of myself. Thanks for the sprinting tips. You're welcome, Kitty. I will definitely ask some technical questions on Discord in the future. Well, to be honest, if if I can do it, everybody can do it. I am a technical noob, and you must have seen that I had some audio issues in the past, so it all went fine. It's you just have to push one button and it's go live. And now I have one button and that says end broadcast. So it's best not to click that one if you still want to stay live. But other than that, there's not a lot to it. Shadia about I'm glad my mom died. I just mentioned it, I think half an hour ago, something like that, in the beginning of the sprints. I really enjoyed that one. Well, enjoying that biography is a little bit wrong, right? It's not the term that I want to use because it was a very hard hitting novel, but I do think that it was very well crafted and that it's a very important read as well, if that makes sense. And the author had a great way of talking about her trauma in also a funny way at times. So that definitely lifted the mood whenever things got too heavy. She had a joke. So I really liked that one. Hi, Maza. When I had a dog, I just talked to it during walks, explained my thesis to it before writing. That is definitely a perfect way to practice your thesis. And it would have been a very smart dog. Mine are usually I try to go in the field so they can sniffle a little bit. I do have them on a leash, however. It's like the flexi leash that they still have, I think, 8 meters. But if I let them loose completely, they do not listen enough, especially when they have a scent. But I can talk to them all I want. They're just sniffing around. So not the best audience. Is there a reason why you're so scared outside? Glad to hear you are getting over that. I am just a scaredy cat, Esme. I don't know why. I'm sure that there's like something in my childhood. I know that I am, well, I've talked about this before, but my siblings are 11, 10, and 8 years older than me. So they used to watch a lot of scary movies and stuff like that when I was, it was definitely not age appropriate for me. I used to watch my brother play Resident Evil and stuff like that when I was way too young. And I always had extreme bad nightmares because of that. But I think that I grew out of that. But for the longest time, even when I was just home alone and it was 7 in the evening, but it was dark outside, I was terrified. And I'm slowly getting over that just because that's annoying and it's a little bit embarrassing, but it also just slows you down in life and it makes you not enjoy things that everybody's enjoying. So I just try to push myself. And sometimes I'm still very afraid. And when I'm in the middle of the field and it still takes me like 15 minutes to get home, I really am very angry at myself. Like, why am I here? What did you do? But at the end, I always feel a little bit proud. Hi, Claudia. Finally finished Name of the Wind. 4.5-star read. Yes, great. And now The Winter of the Witch. Ooh, that's the third book in the Winter Night trilogy, right? I really love that series so much. And I do hope that the author is coming out with something new, hopefully, in the next couple of years. Because I don't know if she's written anything else. I don't think so. Maybe, I'm wondering. I think that maybe she has written some YA stuff that is not in the same vein as the Winter Night trilogy. But I knew that I looked it up after finishing that one. And since I don't have anything else on my shelves by her, I do think that she hasn't written anything else. But I hope that you love it. I thought that it was a great conclusion to that series. That dog was an expert on self organizing maps and artificial neural networks. That is great. Talking to my friends recently about how we've all been kind of programmed to be hyper vigilant when walking outside after dark. Guess it was also heightened for us because of you too. Yes, definitely. And especially when you think about it, and I've actually looked at data and stuff like that because I wanted to like get over it and not be an idiot. Like after um, a night out, for example, I've read that males actually have a higher chance of being attacked and being the victim of physical abuse. But somehow it's really ingrained in us that being outside after dark is something that you should be afraid about. I also have some, well, of course, you have the very realistic threats, like bad people. But on top of that, I'm also afraid of threats that I know are ridiculous, like ghosts and stuff like that, which sounds ridiculous. Now I'm here and now it's light and I have the dogs next to me and my husband is in the other room. But once you're alone, you start thinking and it doesn't sound so ridiculous then. Script unfortunately has a history of not respecting copyrights for ebooks. Not sure if they've dealt with that. I have no idea. Huh. Now I need to look it up. Well, it's actually Script is one of those services that I never really paid attention to because I thought that we didn't have access to it, and apparently I'm wrong. But okay. Well, I don't. I will get into that, but you do have certain free libraries in the US, and you can become a member. And if you're a member, then you do have access to Libby. But I never really thought about it if that's okay. I just assumed that it was. Now I need to look that up as well. Hi, Tokyo. How are you doing? It's been a while, but I've seen you on, I think, Mike's Discord. So I hope you're doing well. I think she has connections, Cleo. No connections. Just now I'm thinking if I'm doing something wrong. But thanks for pointing that out because I'm a dum dum, of course. Audible has a mix. You own the ones you pay for, but they have a catalog of audiobooks you can just listen to as a subscriber. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. And those are like known books. Yes, Lee Bardugo. Lee Bardugo is the author of Ninth House. Thanks, Raf. Script is much better than Storytel. Lots of new releases and all the English ebooks and audiobooks. Even some indies and self-pop. Okay, yeah. Storytel does not have indies or self-pop. I do have more than enough on the backlog that I still want to listen to on Storytel, so no issues there, but still. If you can get a better deal for the same amount of money, I should look into that. By the way, we have been talking for 40 minutes at this point, so I'm just maybe going to start the sprints, if that's a good idea, and then I will get back to the chat afterwards, because otherwise, we all know me, right? I'm going to keep talking and then we don't have any reading done. So 45-minute sprints, everybody, and then I'll get back to the chat where I stopped. Happy reading, everybody. I was a little bit too late. I just plugged in my headphones, so I do hope that you guys can hear me. But yes, 45 minutes have passed, so sprinting is done. How did everybody do? I have gotten until, I think, the first page of chapter 4. So 35 pages in total. I must say that I'm really enjoying the fifth season by N.K. Jemisin so far. I didn't really know what to expect. And I was a little bit nervous because a lot of people told me that it's very different and the writing style is something that you either just like or don't like. It's second person. And I don't think that I've ever read a book that is second person, but person POV, but I'm really enjoying it so far. And I don't think that it's as strange as I was expecting based on other people's opinion. But of course, I must also say that I'm only 4 chapters in. So I'm at page 60 of a book that is 440 pages. So, of course, things can change. But so far, I am pleasantly surprised. So I'm just going to look at where I stopped in the chat. Hi, Doreen. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Not a fantasy, I think. I have not heard of that one, but I do hope that it's a good read. Working on my TBR with 70 books. Is that the physical TBR or is that your Goodreads challenge that you want to read this year? Good luck either way, of course. Hans bought 2 books so far this year. Together, okay. One is Speaking Bones, so I can finish the read along, and one is a book I wanted for years. And I will buy the box set of Ice and Fire, probably. Those are some good picks. And Speaking Bones is one that I still need to buy. So it's the fourth and final one. I have the other 3, but I can still, since I'm listening to the audiobooks, I don't really need to buy it to read it. I just wanted to complete the collection, but it's not something that I need to buy as soon as possible. And the box set for A Song of Ice and Fire is yes. The end broadcast one is awkward. You say bye, and then I remember I need to press the button, and then it still takes like 20 seconds before it ends. Yes. It's you wave, and then you press the button, and then you just smile and wait until finally it says like live show has ended. But the other way around, sometimes I want to be ahead of that problem and I push the button too soon, and then it's just bah, and the live show ends. So you just cannot do it right. Maybe after practice it will happen. For us folks not in the US, you can pay €50 to Brooklyn Library and get access to Libby and their ebooks, audiobooks. Yeah, I think it's not Brooklyn Library, but there was one that I could just become a member of, and I have not checked yet, but I should check if that's okay. Since you wanted to read more this week, I want to inform it. Oh, okay. Well, I was pretty good, right? I did not see that yet, but I was ahead of it. I do hope that food was nice, Kitty. It always takes me a little bit of time to catch up, Hans. You know this. I want to procrastinate working on my proposal. We've all been there. Yes, we have been there, Paramita, but I do hope that it worked out fine during the sprints. Did you read or did you work a little bit further on your proposal? Esme is also scared of ghosts, not alone. Yes, it is a little bit less embarrassing when you hear other adults say that they're also afraid. Even though it's easy to be dismissive in the light. When darkness comes, we're all small children. Currently reading The Silent Patient. That's one of those books that I've heard so many things about, and I think that's also been adapted into a movie, if I'm not mistaken. But I have not seen the movie and I have not read the book. But I do expect that it's a good read, right? If it has that much popularity. In any case, I hope that you're enjoying it. Often books, often first ones in a series to hook you. Yes. It takes a while, but for this one I'm just sometimes you think that something is going to be very difficult and that it's going to be a difficult read. And when it's not, that is nice. On the other hand, having wrong expectations can also be a little bit jarring because that's what I that's the issue that I have now with The Once and Future King. I don't know why, but I thought that this was a very difficult read. And I think that maybe I've seen it somewhere, somebody talking about a King Arthur retelling, and it was a different book. But somehow I thought that this was like almost an academic work. So I was going into it thinking I need to write things down, I need to look things up, I need to have a conversation about this book because otherwise I will be too stupid to understand anything. And the it's a children's book, right? So I was listening to that. Did I have the wrong book in mind? And did I just pick this up by accident? It's not a bad book, by the way, but I mean, I had very different expectations. Yes, well, I will first check if it's okay, but if it is, I will share my secrets. I know myself after a while, and I know that I need to check the time just now and then to see that I'm not rambling on for too long. As for fear in the dark, you're not afraid of being afraid to be alone in the dark, but that you're not alone in the dark. Yes, but I get the fear. It's mostly our brain telling us something. Yeah, and it's if you think about it, it's a natural response and it's evolution, right? That you should be on your guard when you're alone because there's nobody there to protect you as a group. But you don't want to think about it because then it's even more real that you should be scared. Cleo on page 708. That's good progress. You're in 17 pages in the fifth season. You are ahead of me, right? Because you said something that around the page 100 something happened, and I'm only at page 60. But I do hope that I will be able to get to that point in the second sprints because that would be nice. Because now I'm just very curious what happens. I'm very happy that I'm liking her as well, or well, that I'm liking the first book because I've also heard that it's a mix between sci-fi and fantasy. I think that Esme said that. And I can definitely see already what she means, and I think that that will even expand further along in the book. But it's also such a unique fantasy that I don't mind the mix of two genres. Hans read 26 pages of Game of Thrones, really loving it so far. Yes. How far are you, Hans? Did you just start it, or are you already a little bit further in? I am going to watch another episode of Game of Thrones, by the way, after the sprints. My husband asked me, like, are you going to stop in time so we can still see one episode? Okay, fine. Because we are, I think we're at no, we're at season 3. I don't know which episode exactly, not going to spoil what's happening there, but we are very surprised on how well we are watching. We are not the best, like we when you have a book and you DNF, we are TV show DNFers. We start watching a TV show, and even if we like it, after a while we start to realize that we haven't watched for months and that now we're out of it. So I thought that the same thing was going to happen with Game of Thrones, especially because it's a rewatch for me and I've read the books and I've seen the show, and especially those first seasons I've seen multiple times because every time a new season was released, I watched the entire thing all over again. But somehow we're doing great and we want to keep up the good work. Hi, Chris. Joined about halfway through and got about 20 pages of my historical fiction read, The Serpent Sword. That's great, especially if you joined halfway through. 20 pages, good pacing. I do hope that you're enjoying it as well, of course. Reading Thistlefoot on page 239. Somehow I recognize that title, but I have no idea. I could be way off here. I have the idea that it's written by Brom, but I think that's another foot. It has foot in the title, but I don't think that it's Thistlefoot. 31 pages, finish the book. Great. That's another one for your Goodreads challenge to cross off, right? The fifth season is so good. A live favorite. The whole trilogy is amazing. Well, I bought the entire trilogy and I said I I have bought entire trilogies or entire series in the past because it's a great deal and you have a box set, and I have been burned by that. Either just waiting too long to actually start the series and then not really being all that hyped up for it anymore, just because somehow the excitement dies down if you wait too long for certain series, and then you have the entire series on your shelves. Or starting the first book, DNFing it, maybe 100 pages in, and then you have that entire trilogy. So a rule that I had was to not buy entire series, buy the first book, see if you like it, and then continue buying. But for this one, the Broken Earth trilogy, it had the entire set for not even 20 euros. So I decided to just take the jump. So yes, I am very excited for this one. And I do hope that I will be able to read around one book per month. If it remains the same easiness to get through it, then I do think that that will be possible. Because if I'm not mistaken, the first one is actually the biggest one, and it's around 450 pages, so it should be possible to read one book per month. One chapter further in the darkest road and scanning something like 30 pages. That's good progress. Do you mean, because I think that you had 800 pages to scan, do you need to scan all of them today? Or you can just continue with those 30 or however many pages you will scan by the end of the day? Tomorrow was one of my favorites last year. Is that contemporary? Now I'm curious. Sorry, just going to tomorrow and tomorrow by Gabriel Zivin, if I'm not mistaken. It does get a pretty good score on Goodreads, 4.34. Apparently, it's a best-selling author, and I never heard of him before. Of course, fiction, contemporary romance. Oh, okay. Well, it seems like one that I maybe just should add to have a little bit of a palate cleanser after reading a lot of fantasy. But at the same time, I know myself. At the very least, it's a standalone. So I'll just keep it on my radar. But I still have, well, I have quite a few non fantasy books on my shelves. But the one that I really want to read, maybe this year, is Where the Crawdads Sing. It's also, is it contemporary or is that historical fiction? I actually don't know. But that's one that has a lot of buzz around it. I know that a lot of people really love that. I think that Stacy gifted that one to me, a fellow booktuber and friend, and I still haven't read it yet. So I want to read that one first. That's like top priority of those non-fantasy, non-sci-fi reads, and then I can continue. Claudia read 27 pages. Great. And now, of course, I forget you finished The Name of the Wind, but I do not remember which one you picked up after that. Never read it before. That's so exciting. I know that you were not really certain if you were going to pick this one up together with Dandelion Dynasty, which it would have made sense if you wanted to finish one before the other, but I'm glad that you decided to pick up Game of Thrones. Shudder read 3 chapters of I'm Glad My Mom Died. How are you liking it? I have also read it physically, but I've heard that the audiobook gets narrated by the author and that she did a great job with that as well. But I read it physically. I still don't have a physical copy though, and because it did quite well, I think that that's okay. But usually, when I like it that much and when it's a personal story, I don't really read a lot of those. But I do want to support the author. But it really was a very hype book, and it got a lot of recognition that it deserves. So, and it's also one that I will never reread because it was a tough read at times. But what are you thinking about it so far, Chadia? I finished editing my cooking video and talked to my grandma on the phone and ranted to her about work. Sometimes that just needs to happen, right, Kitty? By the way, is that cooking video about your soup that you are going to make? I'm going to make soup tomorrow. I I tried, okay, but I was a little bit under the weather during the weekend, but I wanted to have soup to bring to work because that's always easy to have a healthy lunch and then that starts your day and you want to continue being healthy because you've done good during lunch. But I didn't make soup. So the last 2 days were not the most healthy lunch times, but tomorrow I will make soup. And I will have a look at that cooking video because I think that you had one with, was it with pumpkin or was it a different kind? But I'm going to give your recipe a try. Hi, Pika Pika. Apparently, there are multiple of us here who are not the biggest fan of ghosts. It's also the reason that I cannot read horror or supernatural stories. I read Heart Shaped Box by Joe Hill when I was younger. I think it's more than 10 years ago. My sister bought it. She's she's a reader, but she reads maybe 3 books a year, and then once she has a book, she likes it, she will read that in a week, but then she just goes on not reading for months, and that's fine. But at the time she bought it, she read it, and then it was just laying around in the house. I read that one. Heart Shaped Box is a great read, but I still get scared when I think of that book. So that just made me realize no horror for me. I just can't do it. Same for movies, by the way. I like it when I'm watching it and I like the feeling of being afraid until the movie ends and real life like starts beginning again and you're still afraid. Hi Alona, joined halfway but read 10 pages. Great. Of one of my picks for nonfiction, The Map of Knowledge by Violet Moller. Hmm. I have not heard of that before. Are you going to read a certain amount of nonfiction? Is that a challenge for 2023? Silent Patient started very nicely and moving in a great pace. Yes, it is adapted to a movie. Okay, that's great. Sometimes books are just great at immediately capturing your attention and getting you in the movie, in the book. So that's nice to hear. Can't sleep in the dark. I need some kind of soft light. I'm I'm probably a little bit weird in that sense. When I'm not sleeping alone, it's fine. But for the longest time, I also needed the kind of soft light. And then I thought, well, it's actually better in the dark because I'm afraid that I open my eyes, and maybe I shouldn't say this to fellow scaredy cats, but that I open my eyes and that I see something. So now, even if I'm alone, I sleep in the dark just to, if there's something, then at the very least I will not see it. But also, when I'm alone, my dogs sleep with me. They have no choice. If I'm alone, they're going to be with me and they're going to protect me, even though they're like extremely small. I hope that they will be fierce when something happens. Currently at page 145 of the fifth season, but we'll read till 151 now before we continue with the sprint. That's the end of a chapter, I suppose. You are going through this book very fast, Jurgen. That's exciting for me to see as well, because that means that I'm in for a good read. 130 pages into well, A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. Ooh, okay. Interesting things are going to happen, Hans. Yes, Bram has Slewfoot. That's the book that I was thinking about. Bram is one of those authors that I want to give a try because I think he has The Child Thief, which is like a dark retelling of Peter Pan, but he has a couple of other ones as well. Kramus, is it Kramus? And I've heard mixed things. Some people think that he's an absolute genius, others don't like his works. At the same time, I'm just saying that I shouldn't read scary books. And I think that Bram is definitely an author that if I read his works, and especially he's also an artist in terms of he illustrates his own books, it might not be the best idea. Okay. Thistlefoot is by Jenna Rose Nethercutt. Hmm. Thistlefoot. Of course, I don't know how to write it now. Yes, I found it. Fantasy fiction horror. Okay. But also a retelling. A mythology. In the tradition of modern fairy tales like American Gods and Spinning Silver. Ooh, I really do like Spinning Silver. And it's an epic rich in Eastern European folklore. Okay, I put it on my want to read list. Oh, I'm not signed up. Okay. I will remember this and put it in my want to read list for Goodreads after the sprints. I also buy entire series. Claudia, I have learned the hard way. Well, at least that I'm not the person to do that because it seems like I've been getting to know my taste better and better. So now it's actually very rare that I pick up a book that I think I'm going to love and I DNF, but especially in the beginning of BookTube, when I was not per se a booktuber, but I discovered BookTube and I discovered other booktubers and I was a watcher. I picked up so many series because booktubers liked it and I didn't really know my own taste yet. I still have the Lycanius trilogy. And to be fair, I haven't tried that one yet, so maybe I will love it. But at this point, I know that I wouldn't buy it now because I've heard a couple of things that make me think that I will not like it. And I have the entire trilogy. So, and then of course, we also have Magician by Feist. I talked about this last week, I think, that I also have the entire trilogy and I did not like that first book. But to be honest, I think that those might be the only two where I really bought the entire trilogy and then didn't like it in the end. So I could have done worse, right? Oh, I also have the entire Night Runner series by Lynn Llewellyn, which is about 15 books. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. I only have 10, apparently. So I do not have the entire series, but I have 10. And I stopped reading after book three. So, but those are the only ones. So I could have done worse, but I have time. It's two books, one with 200 pages and one with 600. They need to be back at university library next week. Okay, so luckily you will not have to pull an all-nighter to get them scanned today. Yes, of course, you were reading The Winter of the Witch. I should have known that because that's still one of my top 10 favorite series of all time. My problem is remembering names, so that's a tough one for me. I decided to combat this by writing a giant chunky review for The Veiled Throne. Plus, I didn't own the next one. Yes, okay, so you need to read something in between, of course. I must say that with the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu, I love that series, but I do have a lot of issues with remembering names there as well, just because there are so many. And maybe that's also from a European point of view, but a name like Bran or Catelyn or Ned or Robert, that's easier for me to remember than the names in an Asian inspired fantasy series like Dandelion Dynasty. So that combination with names that I'm not really familiar with and the fact that there are so many, and it's just a very epic series. It's quite complex as well. I should probably write a review for The Veiled Throne or just take notes, just so I don't look like an idiot when we have the discussion in March. We'll probably finish Dandelion Dynasty before reading more of A Song of Ice and Fire. I think that I will try to listen to The Veiled Throne next month. So that means that the third and the fourth book I read pretty close together, which I'm happy about. But I also think that that's necessary because if I'm not mistaken, the author wanted to write that as one book, and it was just so massive that he had to divide it in two. But then it's probably easier if you read them closer together. I think the pumpkin soup is what you dropped your phone into. Yes, yes, that is true. Thanks for remembering, for reminding me, Kitty. I did a pea soup last week. This week it's a sweet potato ragu, one of my new faves. That does sound delicious. I have never made a pea soup before, but true story, my husband has been asking me for, I think, years at this point. He wants a pea soup with little bacon pieces, and maybe I should give it a try. I just never had pea soup at home, so somehow I'm not really used to making that, or it never really even comes to my mind that that's a possibility. But I will look at your recipe and give it a try. But yes, by the way, the phone is still going strong. I was not expecting that, especially because all of the ports had a little bit of soup in it still towards the end, but it charges, it's fine. Pea soup I've always wanted to try. Yes, me too, Hans. It sounds funky, but also very savory. I think that it's perfect to eat in winter, right? Because it's like you said, it sounds like it's like a thick soup, perfect for winter, and that it might be too heavy for summer, but I haven't tried it, so I don't really know. Afraid of the dark, but I love horror books and movies. Yes, it's the same. For me, it's a little bit like protecting myself, and I can be really angry at myself when I finally do it and I'm like, oh, I'm not scared. I've been okay for months. Let's watch a scary movie again. And then it goes downhill. So I've learned my lesson, but maybe around Halloween is a time that you should give into it, right? I've already been angry because of the gaslighting, but so far the writing is great. It reads very easy. I have the audio too. I'll probably do immersion reading. Yes. Yeah, it was. This is one of those books that afterwards I wanted to watch some reviews for I'm Glad My Mom Died, and some editors as well. I think that she's an editor, like a professional editor, also said that as an author, she did a really good job. Because sometimes when you have memoirs or biographies by people who are not really authors necessarily, you can see that the writing style is not the best. But she said that she thought that the author of I'm Glad My Mom Died, and of course the name is escaping me right now, but she did a great job. At that point, it has an interlude, so I want to get there and see what happens next. I'm just going to have a look to see if we might have like the same page editions, because that would be easy to talk about it and to make sure that we're not really spoiling each other for the fifth season. 151 was your interlude, right? Same. Well, mine stops at 149, and then the interlude starts at 150. So around the same. That's great. Yes, I remember. You had a soup with coconut milk. It goes to show how bad of a cook that I am, but I never really tried something with coconut milk, so that was what immediately caught my attention. I think I read fifth season in 2 days when I read it the first time. It was so good. Wow. Well, 2 days is not going to happen because, well, I started yesterday. But I do think that I'm going to finish it by the end of the work week, probably, especially if I'm also going to join sprints on Cleo's channel on Thursday, and then hopefully on Steve's channel if I can catch it somewhere this week. Thistlefoot on your TBR as well. Yeah, I don't know why I never heard of that before, because it sounds like something that I would absolutely love. Jurgen is going to finish fifth season tomorrow. And I get the buying of whole series. I haven't read any works by Feist, but someone recommended him to me, and now I have 18 books by him, including the book he co-wrote with Words. Sometimes that just happens, right? Especially when we get very excited for a certain book. And it can be a hit. If you really like that first book, it's great that you have 18 others left, right? I still am going to try the trilogy that he has with Words. It's the Empire trilogy, if I'm not mistaken, because I have heard that even if you don't like his main works, you have a big chance of still liking that trilogy. Okay, you read 9 books so far. I am thinking that maybe I should give that first one another chance just because I listened to the audiobook, if I remember correctly. And maybe it was the narrator, but at the same time, I don't really think that it will happen just because I have a backlog TBR of books that I'm more excited of for now. Because once you try a book and it's not really your cup of tea, your excitement just goes below zero, or at least that happens with me. Don't know if it's the same in Belgium, but we call pea soup here in the Netherlands also snurt. Snurt. Snecht. I was trying to pronounce it in the English way, but that did not work. Ideal for winter and for summer if you've lost a lot of salt due to sweating. I think that we call it that as well if it's together with bacon, right? That's the one that my husband wants to try, but he just really likes bacon. So I think that he calls it a win if he can eat a soup and it has bacon in it. Oh, I didn't know that you also really liked Riftor, Chris. You've read the entire series because I think that's like 35 books. It's really big. And that was what drew me into that series because I read Realm of the Elderlings. Well, I was in the middle of Realm of the Elderlings and I really loved that one. And I thought, well, it would be great if we have another long series that's divided into shorter series. And then you can read a trilogy, have a break, read something else, go back to that world, back to those characters that you love. And that's how I tried Feist. But somehow it didn't really work as well for me. Pea soup as an erwten soup. Yes. Somehow my brain has pictured peanut soup all this time. Sorry. Pea soup is amazing, and my mom makes it a ton with sausage slices in it. Okay, but if I tell my husband that I can make a soup with sausage slices in it, he will be very much on board as well. And no, I also never had peanut soup before. It does sound delicious, peanut soup, but I don't think that it would be very healthy. So the plan is for this year to pick one nonfiction and one fiction, which is non-fantasy, okay, per 1 or 2 months to read along the fantasy ones. That's great. I had the same idea more or less last year. I wanted to read 5 nonfictions and I think 5 classics as well. I didn't really do too well, but I do think that it's just great to have some challenges, especially if you don't get very stressed out about them, just because it does push you out of your comfort zone. Well, I only read one nonfiction. I'm glad my mom died. But the classics I only read two, I think. I thought that I'd done better than that. But at the very least, those are two more than I read before 2022. And if I didn't have that challenge, I would have read none. So I still consider that a win. And what is the fiction book that you're going to read this month? Or this month or February, the non-fantasy one? Pea soup like erwten soup. There's also peanut soup. I didn't even know that that existed. But usually, if if you can think about it, somebody has tried it. In Portugal, we have a soup with different types of meat and traditionally a stone in the bottom. We call it stone soup. It's fun to hear of those traditions because if you're not familiar with them, they sound like what? How did somebody think about that? But then you think of our own silly traditions and they're just as weird. But it's funny. Somebody must have made that up and everybody just went along with it. Only read 12 books of it so far, but it's fun. I'll do a reread of it and continue someday. Well, still, 12 books is a lot. It is a humongous series. But if you like 12 books, that is the first 4 trilogies. I can still do math, yes. So that's good progress. Sausage slices in soup, sign me up. Exactly. It's like whenever I make soup, my husband asks to put cream in it, and I'm like, I'm making soup because I want to be healthy. Let's not add all of these things. Yes, they make it more delicious, but we want to be more or less healthy. But sausage slices in soup does sound like something that I want to give a try. I read Riftwar as one of my first adult fantasy books, so I didn't have much to compare it with. Maybe it would have been different if I read them later in life. Feist is still considered one of the best fantasy authors ever, right? I didn't like Wheel of Time, but it definitely has a big fan base. So as long as you enjoyed it, I think that for me, I don't. Is it a spoiler to say that there were non-humans in it as well? And it caught me a little bit off guard. And especially in the beginning, I it was a coming of age story that just went a little bit too easy for me. I like it when the main character suffers a little bit, and this was just a feel good story. Which maybe if I pick it up at a different time in life, where I am looking for more feel good, I would like it more. Raf is going to read the Cambridge Companion to Fantasy right now while you're scanning, because maybe, yes, how I don't know how long we've been talking, but maybe it's time for another sprint, right? But I'm almost up to speed with the chat, so we're going to do that first. I've had some really problematic stuff about the first Riftwar book, so no thanks. Is it with disability representation? I watched half of your video. I have not watched the other half because I was listening to it while doing stuff at work. Then I had to focus on work, and that is a video that I really want to give my full attention, so I stopped. But so far, I'm really liked that you put it up. And I think that's a very important discussion to be had. My fiction is An Artist of the Floating World by Kazuo Ishiguro. I butchered that name, I'm sorry. And talking about soup with sausage, I recommend Polish soup called Zurek. Is it Zurich? I'm going to have to look that up. If it's soup with sausage, I know that I will have at least one person on board in the household. No, not disability, SA and how it is handled. Okay, I didn't even know that. I DNF'd the series before that could happen. I'm going to have to look it up. But thanks for the warning, because that is important to know. I think it's mainly because it's early 1980s and most stuff was problematic then. Yes, well, fair point. Okay, so I think that we're up to speed because otherwise we're never going to read. 45-minute reading sprints. Happy reading, everybody. Time is up. How did everybody do? I had to stop at the worst possible time in the fifth season. I'm going to see what pages is, but it was just as a chapter and something was happening that, well, I am at page 97. So this is just a start, but I know that Jeroen talked about it on Discord, and that something that happened here made him pause and think about this book. And yes, well, it's happening right now. So I'm definitely going to finish this chapter after the sprints. It's only a couple more pages, I think. Although it does seem to be like, oh no, okay. So the chapter ends at page 104. But this is such an interesting read. I do have a couple of questions though, and I don't know if it's normal that I still have these particular questions or if I need to look some things up and ask a little bit of advice. But I'm really enjoying it so far. And also, since I am at page 96-ish or 97, whatever it was, I finished 37 pages. So how did everybody else do? Hi, Sarah. It is true. Daughter of the Forest has an essay scene that is very hard hitting. I do think that it is handled with care, but yeah, it's very graphic. So I can completely understand that not everybody is going to be up for that type of read. Okay, so you will. I get that it happens in a lot of fantasy, definitely at some point, never really a fan. But as I understand it, it's even more problematic in Riftform. I'll explain in Discord. Okay, I'm going to have a look after the sprints. What is happening? Hello. Cleo read 10 pages and started watching Die Kaiserin. Is that about Sissy? Because I do know that there are quite some Sissy shows. Well, I don't know if there are quite some, but I've heard about one that was pretty new, and I do really like the story of Sissy, and I think that I might be interested in that one, at the very least, if it's available on Netflix, because I only have Netflix. Managed to read a chapter in Harlem Shuffle. I hope I can read another one in bed later. I hope so too, Kitty. If you're enjoying it, then one more chapter should be possible, right? Or at least if you don't have to get up too early tomorrow. Exactly. It's really not the best page to end. And I was really speed reading because I was looking up and I saw 10 more minutes. Okay, I'm going to finally reach that point, which was a goal of mine to get to page 100 today, and it is going to happen, but just 5 minutes too few in the sprints to get there. 40 pages. That is a very good reading speed, Cyprian. Great. What are you reading at the moment? 28 pages, also very good. Are you enjoying Winter of the Witch? I'm sure you do. If you like the first two books, then Winter of the Witch is just going to be another favorite, right? 25 pages, 103 of Babel now. I don't know if it's my thing. I haven't tried that one yet. I've heard most people that I've heard talking about it absolutely loved it, but I have heard some negative things as well. I don't really know what to think of it. I, at the very least, want to give it a try. Have you read the Poppy War by her, the trilogy? Because I've read that one and I quite enjoyed it, but I think that Babel is a little bit different. Scanned another 30 pages or so and read 1.5 essays in the companion. Great. Progress has been made. Sarah read 11 pages of Icebreaker. Icebreaker is a book that I have not heard of before. Is it by Hannah Grace? I was going to say, but that's for sure a fantasy, but apparently it is not. It seems like a romance. It does sound like, well, from what I can see here, it does sound like a fun book, a quick fun read. November 22 of 2022, so it's new release as well. I hope you're enjoying it. I didn't read, half embroidered, now playing a video game. Will read more before bed later. Yes. I I will not be playing another video game today, just because it's already 10 almost. I will be watching a Game of Thrones episode and then I just need to go to sleep. Even though it's a day working from home tomorrow, I hope to start very early in the morning so that I can film afterwards. And I do know that once I start a video game, I get extremely hyped up and I cannot sleep afterwards. So that's an issue. I need to do it at, at the very least an hour before I want to go to sleep. 258 of Thistlefoot. Great. Are you enjoying that one? Because I've never heard of it before until this print, and now I am very, very curious. Also a movie. Okay. And Die Kaiserin is on Netflix. Perfect. I know that my mom was a very big fan of Sissy, and there were movies. Was it a TV show or was it a movie? But it came out in 60s or 70s, and she was a very big fan. But it was a very romanticized version of the story. Because if I'm not mistaken, she did have a pretty harsh life. I saw a meme today with a medieval picture I love. Looking for the source sent me onto a wild goose chase over the internet. Turns out the beautiful illustration was made in Flanders. Ooh, okay, that's interesting. Are you going to use it as inspiration? I don't really know a lot about, well, our history of art and stuff like that, but I would like to know more. I wanted to drink coffee and it's empty. Maybe I should stop drinking coffee as well if I want to go to sleep within the hour. Ooh, that's not true. I like The Bear and the Nightingale, but didn't like the other two. Okay. I do think that The Bear and the Nightingale is different than the second and the third book. But I think if you like the second one, you will like the third one. The Bear and the Nightingale, for me, is still my favorite, I think, just because, well, first of all, I'm a sucker for first books in a series, just because I like to get to know the world, get to know the characters. In the first one, you have the biggest coming of age team. In the second and the third one, you might have it as well, but the first one, the biggest one. And I like the atmosphere most of all in the first one. And I do think that most people like the second and the third one more because more things are happening and there's a little bit more magic. But for me, the first one is my favorite. Although I still really love the second and the third one as well. Read the essay from Dryden to Dunsany on early history of fantasy, now in one of the history of the Gothic. Is Dunsany the one who has written The King of Elfland's Daughter? Because that is on my TBR because of you, Raf. And I still hope to give it a try, hopefully in the next couple of months. I read 27 pages and I have 7 left to finish this chapter. Okay, so almost done. It's also great when at the end of the reading day you feel like you have accomplished something and you've made good progress. I can send a pic later. Yes, please share on Discord, Hans. I'm embroidering a big poster of vegetables, currently working on a pumpkin. Ooh, pumpkin, my favorite vegetable. Hi, currently reading All the Light We Cannot See. I suspect it'll be my first 5-star read of 2023. Yes, I have that one in Dutch, and I think that I read it 10 years ago. It, when it was more or less a new release, I think. Don't know how long ago that is, but I remember that I was reading that when I was on a music festival and we were on the camping, so in between gigs, and I could not stop reading that one. I really enjoyed it. I think that some people don't really like the element of magical realism, but for me, it worked out perfectly. Reading Boy's Life by Robert McCammon, and I love it. Can't put it down. I have heard quite a bit of that author in the last couple of months because I think that on Mike's Discord, a lot of people have been reading him. And so far, I've heard nothing but great things. So that you can't put it down either, maybe I should look up what he's about. It's Boy's Life is it historical fiction? Boy's Life, Robert McCammon. Doesn't really say the genre because, of course, I'm looking at a crappy site instead of just using Goodreads. 1960s South. In Alabama's boy's innocence is shaken by murder and madness. Ooh, okay. Yes, Swan Song is a book that I've also heard of by him. Loving the Winter Night trilogy, the folklore elements are so interesting. Yes. And that really got me thinking if we have more of those, because I haven't really seen too many. And I have picked up The Witch and the Tsar by, I think that her last name is Gilmore, but I haven't really gotten too far into it because it's much more, well, it can still be a great read. It's a story about Baba Yaga and the Tsar, so it's historical fantasy and it is folklore inspired, but it was more funny. Like the Winter Night trilogy is not funny, and Baba Yaga is maybe more that kind of humoristic side. So I think that I need to give it another chance. But I was looking for that very atmospheric read of the Winter Night trilogy, and so far I haven't really found anything like it. I did read On Winter's Eve recently, which is a very small novella. It's self-published, and it gave me that same feeling. Like you could feel the cold through the pages. Love the Poppy War. Still have to acquire the rest of the books. But it's not the writing in or Babel. I just don't really feel connected to the characters. Okay, yeah. That would be something that I would find difficult to stomach as well. The Poppy War of the original trilogy, of that trilogy, was my favorite. But I enjoyed the second and the third book as well. I do know that a lot of people thought that the quality went down a lot. And even though I do think that they're not as good as the first one, as an overarching story, I still really enjoyed it. Three Sissy movies originally, I was also a fan. I think that the movies are also in German because my mom speaks a fair bit of German because she watched a lot of German TV, and I think that Sissy was a part of that. The characters in Babel are mostly weak. It's all about the anger over imperialism in that one. That being said, the writing in Babel was also too bland for me. I One of the negatives that I had for the Poppy War trilogy was also that the writing was not the best. I especially thought the dialogues were not like, written in a superb manner. But because I really enjoyed the characters and the story in itself, and it was not too problematic, it was not too jarring, I still enjoyed that series. I can understand that, but when I read a book, I really want to feel connected. Otherwise, I don't care. Yeah, same. I can understand that that's still a very valid approach to a certain story to tell, and that sometimes it's even necessary to tell a story that way. But if I'm not connected to the characters, I have a very hard time to actually liking the book from a reader perspective, not as a reviewer or anything like that. I adored the second and third book in the Winter Night trilogy. The first one was good, but I loved the sequels. Yeah, I think that most people like the second and the third book more, just because in general more things happen there. And I can also see that point. I just really liked the first one. And I think that part of it was that it was almost a hidden gem for me. I got the first one for my birthday 2 or 3 years ago. And I read it and I thought, I love this. I need to have the second one. And then I had to wait until it was delivered, loved it, had to pick up the third one. So I liked that anticipation, not really knowing if I'm going to like it, and then absolutely falling in love with the book. It is interesting. It is about a house on chicken feet inherited by siblings. It also has a villain called the Shadow Man who is trying to locate the house. Oh, okay. The house on chicken feet does give me folklore vibes. You have it in Dutch. Sorry, I recently started following you, fellow Dutchie here. Or are you Belgian? Yes, I'm from Belgium. It's fun that somehow multiple Dutch people and Belgian people have found each other on BookTube. It's a nice little community that we have. Yeah, I saw those sissy movies maybe 100 times. I must have seen them a lot of times when I was younger as well, but I never really actively paid attention. They were just always in the background while my mom was watching them and I was just playing somewhere. You should try Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. It's also an atmospheric read with folk elements if you haven't read it already. Yes, I have read that one and I really enjoyed it. And Uprooted by Naomi Novik, I didn't like as much, but I like both of those books. And those are actually the only Naomi Novik books that I have read because I know that she has the Temeraire series, which is it around the Napoleon War era with dragons. So because of that setting, it didn't really interest me whatsoever, so I put it off my radar. But now I'm thinking maybe I should give it a try. And she also has a series about a magical school, I think. And I do think that that's a trilogy that has just been concluded, or just a couple of months ago. I know that some people on Discord read it and really enjoyed it, but I never really, well, it just never happened to be on the top of my priority list. But I do think that she is the type of author that I will like more books of when I do pick them up. I still appreciate Babel. Unbridled anger at imperialism and capitalism are very much my thing. Yes. I have seen the comparison between The Secret History by Donna Tartt and then Babel, because both are advertised as dark academia. And on that note, I have seen that on Storytel, we do have The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So I am going to try to give that a chance as well in the next coming months, because I've heard so many things about it. And also, people in real life who are not the biggest readers absolutely adore that book. So now I just want to see what all the hype is about. The House with Chicken Feet is the reason that I put it on my TBR. Yes, that immediately piqued my interest as well. Never saw the CC movies. Do I need to return my German passport now? And Kitty as well, feeling like a fraud. Okay, so apparently they are not German, but Austrian. Temeraire is dragons versus Napoleon. Scholomance got flagged for cultural appropriation. Oh, okay. I didn't know that last part. I do know that some people picked it up, and on Discord, I think at least two. Aaron really liked it, and I'm going to call him Accipiter because I don't know how to pronounce the name, but those two really enjoyed the series. But on BookTube, most people just didn't really seem to like it. But I have not heard the cultural appropriation remark yet. Oh, that's a shame. Hi-oh. Hi-oh. What's that? It's hello in Dutch and hello in English. What's up? Printed 120 pages of Dark Matter by Blake Crouch in one sitting. A page turner indeed. Well, it sure seems like that, apparently. Blake Crouch is another author that is on my radar because of people on Mike's Discord. Because I've heard that he is a sci fi author that you just fly through, apparently. But I never really tried anything by him yet. For sci fi, I just really want to get through, and I know that this is probably completely different subgenre of sci-fi, but I first want to get through the Red Rising series. I need to read one, and then I'm up to date. So Dark Age is the next one, I think, and then I'm waiting for the new release. And once that is done, I can maybe open up the TBR for some more sci-fi. But Blake Crouch might be the perfect author to read and to get more into the sci-fi genre. Hi, Drew. I am having a good day. Yes, thank you. I hope you are having one as well. I'm looking forward to your conversation with Raf and Jose on the Age of Madness. Unfortunately, Jose is not able to join us. He had a couple of things going on and said it was going to be too busy. But Rav and I are going to have a conversation, and I don't know what happened. I must say that I still have an hour on the audiobook, but well, the thing happened, and the library, I got out of time. So I just need to read that last hour. I'm going to read it physically because it's maybe 40 pages, maybe even a little bit less. But at this point, I can say that the first Law series is probably going to be in my top 10 of, well, fantasy series of all time. And I was not expecting that because after the first trilogy, I thought, like, okay, yeah, this is a fine read, but nothing spectacular. But the Age of Madness trilogy has definitely turned that around. So, very much looking forward to having a discussion about it. Secret History is nothing like Babel. That comparison is unfortunate and from the back cover. Oof. Yeah, that is a shame. When you have a very well-known book in a certain genre and every other book gets compared to it just to, I don't know, give it a little bit more weight, even though it's not logical. It's like every fantasy book gets compared to Game of Thrones. And that's also difficult because I find it very, most people have read Game of Thrones, for example, and then they ask advice to pick up something similar. But I find that a difficult one to recommend something else for, especially because so many people say that it's unfair when a book or a series gets compared to Game of Thrones. I don't want to be that person that does it when it's completely not correct. Sissy herself is German, though. I can do the Sissy Franz impression by Billy, though. I'm not going to do it, but I do think that I know what you mean. Kwang is always a good read for me because of having studied Chinese. Yeah, I can understand that that just gives you a personal preference towards that author. Really want to read Temeraire. I think that that's a 6 book long series, something like that. I don't think that it's incredibly long, but it's also longer than a trilogy. Keeping my eyes peeled for that gaming channel. I do hope that I will have it, well, up this month somewhere, and then one video up this month, which will be a very basic My Switch collection because I think that that's just a good one as an introduction, and also to just let everybody be very realistic about the type of gamer that I am. I'm a bad gamer. So I just got back into it. I find Mario and stuff like that difficult. So yeah, I'm not a pro. But I do hope to have one out somewhere this month. I just need to think where I want to film because for this, for BookTube, I always sit in front of the shelves, my bookshelves. But for, well, if I'm going to talk about the Switch, I want to sit somewhere else. I just haven't decided yet where exactly. Sissy came from Beieren. Well, Beieren is the Dutch pronunciation. I also don't know what it's called in English. Sissy was a big thing for my parents. They always play on German TV during Christmas. Yes, I can relate, Hans. Okay, Bavaria. Is Beieren or Bayern? The Franz in the series is so handsome. Just watch it because of that, please. I think that I have seen some snippets of the trailer, and I both of the actors, Franz and Sissy, are incredibly handsome. Which, well, it does help, doesn't it? Being hyped on Mike's Discord is a red flag for me. To be honest, on Mike's Discord, there's quite a bit of hype for Robin Hobb as well. They play it on Belgian TV once a year, so I couldn't escape it, and I watched them myself, not with my mom. Well, I don't have cable TV, or is it even called cable TV still? I don't have that for, well, the last 10 years probably. So as an adult, I have not been able to watch TV shows that are just on normal cable TV. I only have Netflix, and I don't think that the Sissy, like the original ones, are on Netflix. Now I'm curious. Raf still needs to start Wisdom of Crowds, but to be fair, Raf, you read a lot faster than me, especially with the audiobooks. I think that it's more than 30 hours long, and I read on 2 times speed, so 15 hours. I need around 2 weeks for that. My parents hated Sissy, so we as kids grew up with this belief. I've only seen 5 minutes or so from the whole trilogy. And not that heavy on the sci-fi so far. More centered on characters, family, love, life choices. Great read. Dark Matter, that is. Okay, that is. I am going to just write it down because I do know that Blake Crouch has written a lot. But if Dark Matter is one that it's not that heavy on sci-fi, and I am a very character-driven reader, so that sounds very interesting for me as well. Okay, and I think that's also not the biggest book ever, right? It's around 500 pages, maybe. So that sounds doable too. I did, however, watch the whole animated Sissy series, so saw something. Huh, an animated Sissy series. I don't think that I've seen that one. They told me First Law was like Game of Thrones, but there was no underage nudity. Big disappointment. I do think that it's one of those where I can see the comparison because in Game of Thrones you have, well, almost no fantasy. It's the same for First Law, and you have the same grimdark undertone and subversion of certain tropes. So I can see where you would like one if you like the other, and vice versa. Also because of writing style, because I think that you said that, Raf, that both George R. R. Martin as Joe Abercrombie have worked in television before. So they write scenes in a way that they are very easily adaptable to TV or movie. And you're going to get the open world Harry Potter game for Switch when it releases. I'm very excited for it. Yes. Well, I actually didn't know that it was going to be available for Switch, but if that's the case, I'm going to get it because my husband is going to buy it on PC. And I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan. It's nothing against Harry Potter. It's just that even though I have the ideal age to be very hyped up for Harry Potter, I never really got into the movies or the books. But it is a world that I think is very cool. So I want to play that, but if my husband is going to play it on PC, I will not be able to play it on PC as well. He's probably going to just, well, use it the entire time, and it is his PC, so that's not more than normal. But if it's on Switch, I didn't know that. So that's a nice surprise. Yes, I am going to give that one a try. I do think that it will be a difficult game to run on Switch because most games that I have on Switch are like 3 gigabytes or something like that. And then I saw that The Witcher on Switch is more than 30. So the Harry Potter game is probably going to be pretty big. Handsome indeed, a nice improvement from the movies one. I actually have no idea how all of them looked, apart from Sissy, who is. Is that Romy Schneider? Booktube hype makes me hesitant to read certain books ever since the Poppy War. Those books were terrible. I know that Steve also really didn't like, especially the ending of the Poppy War. I think that he liked the first book, but then it went gradually downhill for him. Really like Dark Matter too. Most people recommend that one. Okay, that's good to know. And it is just 400 pages. Quick read, certainly a good book to start. First Crouch for me, not the last, I guess. Okay, nice. That's going to be one to add to the list because especially for sci-fi, I have a couple of series that I want to read, like The Expanse is one that I would like to read. The Sun Eater series, that's by Christopher Rucchio, right? I cannot pronounce his last name, but those are two longer series that I want to try. But I need to finish everything else, start a long series, and then one by one, just because I read sci-fi so slowly. But standalones, perfect. With any request for a recommendation, I need to know what exactly they like about it. Yes, like with Game of Thrones, it's what do you like? But because there's so much. If you just recommend something because there's a big cast of characters, or because there's low magic, or because there's a lot of political intrigue, but they actually like a completely different aspect, it's easier if they can like say 5 series or 5 books that they enjoy so you can see a common thread. But if it's only one, there's just a very big chance that you're going to recommend something that they're not going to like because the comparison is never one-on-one or one-to-one. For example, if they like the whole sort of like house rivalry political play, then I could recommend Empire Trilogy. But aside from that, it doesn't give Game of Thrones vibes. But that is good to know because I do like the house rivalry and political play, among other things from Game of Thrones. Also read Empire before Game of Thrones, so if anything, Game of Thrones. Yeah, it's the other way around. Game of Thrones gave you Empire vibes. Playing Skyrim on the Switch, and it's great. Okay, Skyrim is another one that I wanted to try, but I am afraid to try Breath of the Wild, which is a Zelda game, because I think that it will be like a step too high. So Skyrim is one that it sounds so interesting, and I want to give it a try, but I feel like I need to like add some other things to my resume before I can start that game. Okay, it is Romy. Also read Empire first. Yeah, it is a shame that I started with Rift War or that Magician trilogy. I never know if it's Rift War or Rift Cycle, because one is the entire series and one is only the first trilogy. But I'm actually a little bit sad that I started with that one and not with the Empire trilogy. Because if I'm not mistaken, you can read both of them separately because they take place in different parts of that world. And I think that I would like the Empire trilogy more. I was so anticipating a certain ending to the Poppy War and did not like the real ending enough to overcome my disappointment. I liked the ending, which probably makes me a very weird person, but for me, I really enjoyed it. Joking about First Law and Game of Thrones. I actually have seen that recommendation, both for if you like First Law, try Game of Thrones, and the other way around. And I do think that it fits depending on, like Cleo said, what you like of either of those series. Because to be honest, if somebody tells me that they like First Law and they want to be recommended something similar, I wouldn't know what. Well, The Grim Company is an easy one because Luke Skull took literal inspiration from First Law. He openly admits that, nothing wrong with that. But other than that, no idea. So I do think that Game of Thrones would probably be one that I would recommend, with the caveat that you do have a different setting and a different scope. Too many games and books to enjoy, too little time. That is the problem, Hans, always. But at the same time, it is good that there are so many nice things to enjoy that we have a hard time to decide what to do first. Breath of the Wild is lovely. Definitely recommend that way before Skyrim. Okay, let's start with that one. Like, let's up it from just platformer games, which is what I'm playing right now, to something a little bit more strategic. Are the later books of Poppy War lesser than the first? Excited to continue onwards after I finish some other series. I I like the first one most of all just because I like the school setting, but I like the second and the third one as well. So, and I think that there are more than enough people who really enjoyed the trilogy as a whole. Yeah, Breath of the Wild is hella amazing. Spent so many hours. Okay, you like Dragon Republic most of the trilogy. I must say that the second and the third one, it is a little bit vague for me what happened exactly. While the first one, I have very vivid memories of what happened there, but still, I think that, well, for me, it does go one, two, three, probably. The underage nudity and sexting was a joke. Yes, well, I know you, Raf. That was a joke. That was clear for me. But maybe just to make it clear for everybody else as well. Yes. Ooh, you wanted a much darker ending. Hmm. Okay. We knew that, Raf. Yes, exactly, Chadia. The Steel Remains is good if you like First Law. I have the Steel Remains. Yes, I have that one. I got it from Steve for Christmas, and I am going to give that one a try, especially if you say that I will like that one if I like First Law. And I think that Steve also wants to read it this year, so perfect. You never know on the internet. Don't want to get cancelled in 5 years for this, yes. When they go through the archives of Jolene Reads and they find this. For Poppy War, I like Dragon Republic most too. I did not like the overall ending. It was just too rushed. Yeah, I think that at that point, it if you consider that Grimdark, which I do, that was one of the first Grimdarks that I have read. And I was listening to it on audiobook, but I really enjoyed it. By the way, my husband has come and peeked a couple of times to see if I was done. I think that he has Game of Thrones set up. So I am going to say goodbye to all of you. Thanks for these lovely sprints. I definitely made more progress than I would have without all of you guys, and I had a very nice evening with just very interesting chats as always. So thanks for being here, and I do hope that I will see some of you again next week. Well, I hope that I will see all of you again next week, of course. Hopefully, next Tuesday, work will not get in the way. And I am going to just see. I was going to see if there was anything that I should look at for the chat, but it seems we've got it all covered. So, bye bye, everybody. And of course, I